lot to get into. Football is back. Cowboys and Buccaneers tonight.
This is the baseball gods crying on us, man.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. We'll get into the Jeter speech up there in Cooperstown. Brought a tear to my eye yesterday afternoon, and a little bit as well, and some other things, Maggie. But we kick it off a little bit of baseball, and we'll get to the Yankees here in a little bit. But we kick it off with the Mets, because last night down in Miami, and this is a scenario where, you know, the Mets have got to – I mean, the Atlanta Braves aren't playing great baseball right now. So you look at the Mets, they've been helped out by the fact that, okay, even with these losses, they still remain within arm's reach of the Atlanta Braves in the NL East, if you want to look at it that way. However, these are the patsies that the Mets are facing on their schedule right now, whether it be the Nats, where you saw the blown save by Edwin Diaz, or whether it be the Marlins here. And the performance last night where they lose in extra innings in 10, 2-1 to the Miami Marlins. And you know, at some point, I mean, you look at the Marlins starting pitcher. I mean, he was utterly fantastic. This is not about, you know, his dominance, the 14 strikeouts by Alcantara, the 27 swings and misses by that Met lineup. This is about, like, we often get in conversations about managers. Mm-hmm. And what do managers do? What do they have responsibility for? How much in today's day and age, Maggie, how much do you put on the manager? Right. What's realistic? What's not? What's in his control? You know, is he a puppet or not? So every organization's a little bit different, but everyone collaborates. However, the manager, when you get into game situations and game decisions, right, that falls on not Sandy Alderson. That doesn't fall on the analytics department within the Mets. Yeah, right. That falls on the manager, Luis Rojas.
So we think.
So you think, right? I mean, he doesn't have an earpiece.
Not even really. No, he doesn't.
He doesn't have an earpiece. He's not getting.
Don't send him a text.
Basically telling him what to do in the dugout. So Rojas last night, amazingly enough, and we can get into the debate about Baez, whether the ball was fair or foul in extra innings.
Mets got hosed on that.
Yeah, and I thought it was a fair ball, right? I didn't think it was a foul ball. I thought it was a fair ball. However, they did get hosed on that one. However, the pinch hit for McCann with the great Pat Mazeika, who was 0 for his last 10, with J.D. Davis still available at that stage, sitting on the bench, and then the rationalization by Rojas afterwards saying, well, he's not a great sinker ball hitter. Or, honestly, you look at J.D. Davis, the thing that he's great at is driving the low fastball, right? He's a great low ball hitter. But to put a guy like Mazeika in there 0 for 10, number one, it tells you about McCann. Number two, about what he is offensively, that he's getting pinch hit for basically what is a AAA-and-a-half ball player in Pat Mazeika. Not to insult him, that is what he is.
J.D. Davis was in the on-deck circle, obviously, because the pitcher spot was coming up next, but you could have still executed the double switch after. I don't understand.
Makes no sense.
When Mazeika came in, it was like, wait a minute, they can't be playing lefty-righty splits here. No chance that that's what this is, considering Patrick Mazeika has one home run on the season. I don't remember another ball he's hit out of the infield. You're in extra innings. You decide to go to that move, and I firmly believe that Luis Rojas has to have, he can make decisions in game. Obviously, he has to make 100 decisions in the game. But he has to be able to back them up with the numbers, or else I think he's going to get, he's going to have to answer to somebody. Right? I think Aaron Boone's the same way. Like Brian Cashman said, you can manage with your gut, but you better be right. You have to be able to back up. And I don't even see how the numbers back that up. It doesn't. J.D. Davis hitting 322 off of righties. Mazeika's hitting 196. I don't even understand. It's like when he says that it was about, the pitcher for the Marlins has such a great sinker, right? Anthony Bender has such a great sinker against righties. I'm like, do you hear yourself? Do you hear yourself? Because you just put Patrick Mazeika in the game before J.D. Davis because this guy throws sinkers well to righties?
Makes no sense.
Do you hear yourself?
Yeah, it makes little to no sense. So that's a head scratcher from Rojas. And then you get to the bottom half of the 10th inning, right? Runner starting on second base, sacrifice over, man on third, Diaz on the mound, gets the strikeout. Nobody on first, nobody on second, man on third, 2 out. The only guy in that lineup, well, not the only guy. At that stage, though, he was hitting absolute seeds throughout the course of the game. He's the hottest hitter with the Marlins. And, you have Brian De La Cruz up, and you decide to, instead of walking him, as Gary, Keith, and Rob were talking about on the broadcast, as everybody on social media was saying, what are the Mets doing? Mm-hmm. Pitching to De La Cruz there makes little to no sense, especially with the struggles of Edwin Diaz right now, struggling with confidence. We had the conversation yesterday whether or not you trust him in that closer's role, and the answer to that is undoubtedly no. But you're Rojas there. You need to win this game. You need to get this to the 11th inning. and you decide to pitch to the hottest hitter in that Marlins lineup with light hitters behind him because you like the righty-righty matchup with Edwin Diaz against De La Cruz, that's the rationalization after the game. That makes no sense.
Well, especially because the guy who is coming up after De La Cruz is hitting under 200. Again, it's like, do you hear yourself? And one of the things that I really didn't like about Rojas's explanation afterwards was not just about the righty-righty, because the guy who was come up behind him was a lefty, but righty-righty matchup. But like the fact that he's like a rookie, so like take it to him. Who cares? Who cares? It's not showing enough respect for your opponent at the time and not being smart baseball strategy-wise, right? Like the fact that you want to say you trust Edwin Diaz, fine. Managers have to show a lot of confidence in their closers, even when they don't deserve it. In the case of Edwin Diaz right now, doesn't deserve that kind of confidence. You want to show the confidence, but what's more important, the hurting feelings or winning the game? Winning the game is the most important thing. And I can't worry about Edwin Diaz and his feelings. I can't worry about Edwin Diaz and whether or not he's going to have a crisis of confidence because, quite frankly, I don't think the Mets season is going anywhere anyway, and I don't think Diaz should be the closer next year anyway. This guy's got to find himself. He was taken out of the closer's role, had to earn it back last year in a shortened season, and he's going to have to do it again in 2022. At least if the Mets have any sense, he's going to have to do it again in 2022. The thing about Rojas is that Sandy Alderson spoke in Miami before the start of this series, right? And he gave the update on DeGrom, and he gave the updates on all that stuff, and that's what took the headlines. But he talked about Rojas when he was asked about it by the reporters about Rojas's future, because Rojas has an option in next year. He has a contract option that the team can pick up. And he said, not even, we'll talk about that when the season's over. Didn't even, said, has done a nice job
smart.
Early in the season. Like, if I'm Rojas, I'm not feeling great about where my job status is anyway. And so I'm not looking for reasons that they can point to and say, this is a reason why we can't bring you back. This is a reason why we think you're still not seasoned enough for where this team is. And can I just, put out a small request today? I don't want to hear about Wally Backman. And I don't want to hear about Buck Showalter. And I don't want to hear about that. The next manager for the Mets, not sure. Who knows? Because we don't know who's going to be running baseball operations next year for the Mets.
Yeah, and it's not going to be.
That's got to get done first, and it's not going to be Wally Backman.
No, well, it's probably.
I'll bet my life savings.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be Wally Backman, but this is a matter. And I've defended Rojas, right? And you and I had the conversation. If you want to, draw a comparison to when, Boone and the Kansas City Royals and Santana and the decision he made with Aroldis Chapman, right? Here's the difference. Aroldis Chapman has the notches on the belt for being a dominant closer for a guy and has had a career where you said, okay, well, if Aroldis Chapman wants to go attack a guy, let him go out there and attack a guy. It ticked off Chapman when they decided to walk him. But if
Chapman's still a mess.
But here's what it comes down to. Chapman's earned it. Chapman's earned it as a reliever. Like if you're Rojas last night, this is not a matter of building up Edwin Diaz. This is not a matter of trying to, ease his pain or saying, I have confidence in you. As you mentioned, Maggie, this is about winning baseball games. And as a major league manager, the thing at the end of all of it, you can get into communication, get into how you handle the media, get into how you handle players. One of the biggest things is this. Do you put your team in the best possible position, game in and game out, majority of the time, 95% of the time, by your decisions in game to win that baseball game? And we've seen too many instances this year with Rojas where that has not been the case. And last night was confounding. Last night, the Marlins have got nothing to play for. There's basically 500 people in attendance. The Mets need to win that baseball game. Amazingly enough, they survive Alcantara, who's got the 14 strikeouts.
He's excellent.
He's unbelievable. But you get the home run by Conforto because that game was screaming 1-0 final because of how dominant he looks, right? Conforto steps up, hits a big homer in the top of the seventh inning. Big moment. And you said, all right, well, however way it looks, the Mets have got to win the game. And you get Rojas, whether it be the pinch hitting decision with McCann or then compounding the problem by deciding to pitch to the best hitter in that lineup with an open base on first, 2 outs, and Diaz on the mound. Makes no sense.
Well, see, that's the thing about the difference between, mediocre teams and good teams. And the Mets are a mediocre team because good teams, when you weather the storm of a guy who's just on, your opponent, right? You got to tip the cap. Alcantara is amazing. Like he's had really good pitching performances against the Mets before. Like this isn't anything new. He's one of the bright spots of their rotation, and that's really the bright spot of the Marlins, right? A couple guys, but like he's so good, and he pitched a complete game, and you were able to get it to extras. Like good teams, as soon as you get to the bullpen and you're actually able to chase the great starter from that day, that's when you're like, here's my opportunity, and make them pay. Mets can't do that, but that's because the Mets aren't a good team. The Mets are a mediocre team.
Well, and they're sitting here at 70-70 on the season on this Thursday midday. Want to hear from you. 877-337-6666. That's your number to call. The latest loss by the Mets last night down in Miami. 2-1 the final there. Losing in extra innings. The decisions by Luis Rojas. And, regardless of, you mentioned it, Maggie, what Sandy had to say about Rojas, and he can't be feeling like he's in a good position in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think Scott would, regardless of what happened with the DWI.
Right.
They were going to bring in a new They are going to bring in a new president of baseball operations after this season. They are. It's not going to be Sandy Alderson. He's not running this thing after this year.
Well,
right?
There was a little bit of news yesterday that may have taken a big name off the board for the Mets.
And we'll get into that, but whoever is that individual that's running this team will then bring in a new GM, will then obviously, along with Steve Cohen, make the decision of who's managing this team in 2022. That's the way it's going to play out.
Yes. This has to be a Wally Backman free show, though.
Yes, 10-17.
I implore you.